So guys, what if Naruto was Fox Hare with loving Akeno in high school movie? Kuo Academy wasn't an ordinary school by any means. As little as 10 years ago it had actually been a boarding school for the future elite females of Japan, China, North and South Korea, China, Russia, and parts of Eastern Europe. While the boarding school was still open, it had become more open to the public and had expanded to not only included boys, but also a college division. The high school division was where the craziest amount of stuff happened. For one, almost all of the females of Kuo Academy were model and movie star sexy. Sure, there were a few cute and petite girls, but considering most of the girls in Kuo were rocking CDD cup breasts on average, it was crazy. Many of the boys that ran around the school were perverts that were only obsessed with the girls, especially the great Oni-chans of Kuo or the duo of discipline. However, our story starts with one of the great ladies of Kuo, the second most popular girl in school. Himejima Akeno, the 17-year-old woman, was the very definition of a Yamato Nadeshiko according to most of the boys in the school. Akeno could be considered quite tall for a Japanese woman, standing at 56 with a voluptuous figure, large breasts that were easily the biggest in the school at F-cup and gravity-defying. Very long black hair and mischievous violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. She wore a white long-sleeved, button-down shirt with a black ribbon on her shirt collar worn under a black shoulder cape and a matching button-down corset, a magenta skirt with white accents, and brown dress shoes over black crew-length socks. The violet-eyed young woman was bored out of her mind at the moment. English was a bit of a boring subject, especially when one could speak it fluently. Maybe she should have signed up for German or FRNECH like her best friend. Then again, being a third year was challenging. None of the boys interested her. The girls who admired her were too scared to come near her, and those who she called her school friends were all basic yes men. It annoyed her to no end. Before anything else could go through her mind, she felt something vibrate against her breasts. Reaching into the hidden pocket of her shoulder cape, Akeno pulled out her cell and read the text she just received. Daddy, I'll be in town tonight around 7 p.m. Go to my place and wear something sexy. Don't plan on getting any sleep. Akeno blushed at the text, making a few of her friends look at her. Okay, Daddy. Akeno quickly texted back. It was a good thing Rias didn't need her tonight. Akeno walked up to the door of the 9th floor condo that her lover owned. She pulled out her spare key and opened the door, before closing it. The condo was pretty average, if you asked her. A large open space was the living room with a spiral staircase that led up to the bedroom loft on the 2nd floor that overlooked the rest of the condo. 10-foot windows allowed a view over the city and into the condo were it not for the reflective coating on the outer windows. The couches were a light blue, as was the rug underneath the oak table. On the walls were a few scrolls that had ancient text on them, as well as several books on a case. The dark-haired young woman smiled to herself. She walked over to the closet and looked through the clothes that were there. Smiling to herself, she grabbed one out of the closet. It would knock his socks off. It would be another hour before the door opened to the condo and in walked the owner. I am home, came the voice of the owner as he slipped off his business shoes. Stepping more into the room, he heard the bubbling of the rice cooking and soup boiling. Akeno came from around the corner and smiled. Welcome home, Naruto Otausen, said Akeno, wearing nothing but an apron, stockings, and a thong. The now named Naruto was a young businessman who had just inherited Senju Industries from his descended father Senju Minato. He had only just graduated college at 24 and now at 25 was already making headlines and breaking boundaries. Not to mention that he was handsome, to say the least. Standing at 63, he was much taller than the average Japanese man. Probably had something to do with the European blood flowing through his veins. Well built, not like bodybuilders of guys who went to the gym just to go. He was built like every muscle was to be used, a warrior build, blonde hair that was spiky in appearance, purple eyes that if Akeno didn't know any better would signify him as a crow, 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek, birthmarks. Akeno knew that on his stomach was a strange tattoo, but had never asked about it. He wore a navy blue suit, white dress shirt, and matching suit pants. Akeno licked her lips. He wouldn't be wearing those cloths for long. Naruto smiled. The young man smiled as he walked up to Akeno and kissed her on the lips. Akeno tried to keep herself from moaning, but Naruto's hands found her ass and lifted her into the air. Akeno wrapped her legs around his waist as he began to walk to the bedroom. Daddy, what about the food? Asked Akeno, her voice heavy with lust. You already set it aside on a warmer, growled Naruto. Akeno smirked. You know me too well, Daddy. By the time they made it to the bedroom, Naruto had shed his clothes and had already began to ravage Akeno. It would be close to 5 in the morning before Naruto had finished taking Akeno every way he could think of, and some rather inventive ways: in the bed, on the wall, against the glass, back in the living room, and in the bathroom. Of course that was the norm when Akeno was in the arms of Naruto. Every hole of Akeno's was filled at least twice with his cum. Were it not for several factors, Akeno would probably be pregnant with triplets right now. It was nearly noon when Naruto awoke from his sex-induced sleep. He looked down his chest to see Akeno sleeping soundly. Naruto smiled at her, before kissing Akeno on the forehead. It had been about 2 months since Naruto had last seen Akeno. Naruto sat in a chair as he worked on some work for Senju Industries. While many people would be remiss in understanding what they actually did, Senju Industries, they were a medical company that had holdings in several other industries from electronic to entertainment. He currently only wore some jeans. While it could be considered strange, Naruto didn't really care. He went to rub his head when he saw a call coming in. Naruto hit the button, making the screen pop open and show a man who could pass for his older brother but with orange hair with black strikes in it and red eyes. In truth, this guy was probably closer to his ancestor's age. In the background, Naruto could make out the naked body of a blonde woman with multiple tails, Kurama's mate. "What do you want, Kurama?" asked Naruto, leaning back. Kurama smirked. "Someone got laid last night. Why are you surprised?" "I do have a wife and several children, you know," said Naruto. Kurama waved his clawed hand. "Bah. Your legal wife is a succubi who runs one on the hottest strip clubs, escort services in Las Vegas. A wife you haven't seen in a year, by the way, and your supernatural wife is the queen of vampires, who, due to the infighting between the Dark Lord's faction, you haven't seen in 5 years. Hell, thanks to that prick Shuzen claiming your daughter as his own, you haven't even seen her in that amount of time. If you would just allow me to declare war," started Kurama. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "No, Kurama. We've both been though to much and lost so much more. War with the vampires would defeat the purpose of me marrying Akasha. The infighting with the Dark Lords has nothing to do with this, and Shuzen is personal business, not political." Kurama growled. "The fact that he is keeping one of my nieces hostage is political business. Yusaka may be the foreign affairs minister of the Kyoto yokai faction, but we both know that I am the minister of the army and you are the ruler of Kyoto. Why you insist on us hiding our strength is beyond me." Naruto leaned back in his chair. "It took a lot for us to fool heaven into thinking we were dead. I want to keep it that way. As for Kyoto, remember that the only reason Tsukiyomi and Amaterasu allowed us to keep going without their supervision is because the other factions are all watching the biblical faction's truce." The nine-tailed fox did indeed know this. In fact, it was his idea to follow in the footsteps of the other factions and bow out, as it were. However, had he known that the devils were going to set up shop in their backyard, he would have obliterated them in the last war. That was well over 3,000 years ago at this point. "Fine," I coincide. "I called to let you know that several humans from the Angel faction were caught infuriating the Senju head office here in Kyoto," said Kurama. Naruto narrowed his eyes. "Who gave the order?" asked Naruto. Kurama shrugged his shoulders. "Unknown at this time, but we do know that it came from at least the 5th heaven, if not the 6th. Michael and Gabriel wouldn't risk their people on a whim. They know that Senju HQ is nearly impenetrable thanks to the seals I placed around the building. Plus it's part of the Yuki faction territory. That's asking for an ass-kicking, Uzumaki style," said Naruto. "You're thinking Raphael or Uriel?" asked Kurama. Naruto shook his head. "No. More likely a human working on some convoluted reasoning," said Naruto. Kurama nodded. "I'll keep you informed. But you need to hurry back to Kyoto. Kuno-chan misses her uncle," said Kurama, turning off the monitor before Naruto could speak. Naruto sighed. Before cutting off his computer, it would be another hour before Akeno rose from her sex coma, at which point Naruto and Akeno would resume last night's activates. The old schoolhouse was up until 10 years ago the primary used school of Kuo Private Girls Advanced Academy. Instead of a Japanese feel, it had more of a Victorian-era look. It was just off of the main campus close to the gym, surrounded by a small forest within the school grounds. It was 2 floors high and was the place used by the Occult Research Club as their headquarters. Many people often inquired about how to go about joining the orc, but it was a tight group of people, with it only having 4 members: the Prince Charming of Kuo, Yuto Kiba, the mascot of Kuo Academy Tujo Kaneko, and the 2 great ladies, Hamejima Akeno and Rias Gremory. Of course that was a front for the truth. The truth was that the members orc were actually one of several supernatural races that existed. Of course, depending on the race, you either existed in your own unique dimension or lived on Earth. The members of orc were devils, one of several races that existed within the underworld. The leader of this ragtag group was known as Rias Gremory. Heiress to the Gremory noble devil family, The young woman was beautiful at 18 years old. She stood 58 and was quite voluptuous with an hourglass figure and large DD-cup breasts. Blue-green eyes that held unrivaled intelligence. Her most distinctive feature is her long, beautiful crimson hair that reaches down to her thighs with a single hair strand sticking out from the top. Her hair also has loose bangs covering her forehead and side bangs framing her face. She wore the school uniform PF Kuo Academy. She looked at her cell phone in annoyance as it rang for the 5th time before ending the call. She signed in annoyance. "No luck again, Rias?" asked Kiba, a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes. He wore the male uniform. He was Rias, Knight, one of the members of her peerage, reincarnated beings of another race to serve under their king. Rias just so happened to be his. Rias looked up from her desk and gave Kiba an annoyed look. "No, I understand that she has the weekend off, but this can't wait. If Kaneko is correct, then not only is Hyodo-san a potential new member of our peerage, but his family history is quite interesting." Kiba picked up the folder. "It still makes no sense to me. Below average grades, no exceptional skills. His family spent about 2 to 3 years attending the local church, before it was abandoned due to reasons unknown. Honestly, Issei-san looks like he's on the fast track to be a low-end salaryman who spends his money on hookers," said Kiba. "So a possible Christian with no real connection to the church," said Rias. "One?" Kiba shrugged his shoulders. "Possibly, but we have to deal with the crows that moved in recently," said Kiba. Rias leaned back in her chair. "I've already spoken with Sona about this. Until they attack someone or interfere with us directly, we can't do anything. Normally, while you and Kaneko would be out doing contracts, I would speak with Akeno about this kind of thing, but she has the weekend off." "Please don't apologize, Rias. Whatever Akeno is doing must be important if her cell phone is off," said Kiba as he gathered the papers and left the office. Rias looked at her cell phone. "I hope so," said Rias. Location: downtown Kuo Place. Naruto's condo. Time: 1000. Soft music played throughout the condo as Akeno and Naruto cuddled on the couch. Naruto in some softs and Akeno in one of Naruto's shirts with fell off her left shoulder and stopped at mid-thigh, reveling the edge of her pantyless ass. As she curled up on her lover, Akeno couldn't believe that she had actually managed to fulfill part of her dream. Many people would find it strange the way Akeno took her contracts. Then again, devils often did things strangely when it came to contracts. No longer the soul-taking Machiavellian schemers they were only 2,000 years ago. These days devils enjoyed the finer things when it came to contracts. Akeno's contracts were usually for businessmen in high positions or lonely housewives who needed a friend. The housewives' contract was often due to the fact that the woman wanted someone to listen to their worries and drink tea with them. The businessmen, however, wanted more than just a talking buddy. Many of them wanted shoulder rubs, cooked dinner, and some of the older ones who never had time for a family just wanted Akeno to pretend to be their child. Some wanted a spoiled daddy's girl. Others wanted a disciplined, no-nonsense child. Those were her clients more often than not. However, it was the others that she had a bit of a problem with. Akeno made it no secret to her best friend that she wanted her first boyfriend, time having sex, to be an affair. Of Kraus, Akeno always said that it would be Ria's boyfriend just to see what her friend did. Was it strange? Yes, but Akeno still had standards when it came to a future partner. Sure, even as early as 13 years old she could have had a harem of affair partners if she really wanted to. Thanks to her father's blood, her body matured much faster than those in her age group. Hell, Rias had barely budded and Akeno was rocking a C cup at just 13. The first time a businessman had propositioned her she had been 14. He was older, nearly 55, balding, quite rich, and had 4 children and a wife. Not really her type, to be honest, but he normally summoned her to play the part of disobedient child, a role Akeno had become well versed in with other clients, too. One day he told Akeno that he wanted to punish her. Akeno had no problem with this as she had been on the receiving end of a belt a few times. However, what he did went beyond that after giving her behind a good lassing. He had been aggressive and demanding, pushing her against the wall and attacking her neck with kisses and groping her breasts and ass. While Akeno liked that kind of thing, she would only ever allow the man she chose to do that to her. Akeno hit him with a blast of lightning that nearly killed him. She called Grafia, her mentor and mother figure, to the location and told her what happened. In a rare show of emotion, Grafia froze the man to death, banished the new statute to Antarctica. After that, Akeno had been more careful with her clients. 3. Interestingly, at 14 she had met Naruto when he was 21 and attending college and working as a gopher for the COO. Since his father had had failing health, Naruto had summoned her and just asked for a date and companionship. Akeno was honestly captivated by his beauty at the time and figured that he was going to be another asshole who tried to get into her panties. To her utter surprise, Naruto had been an utter gentleman when it came to their date. From there they would meet at least twice a month. That was before Naruto took a position in the company as the deputy chief of staff, at which point Naruto and Akeno would met once a month. Nothing ever happened, just dates, talking, and 6 months into him being her regular making out and light petting. When Akeno was 16, Naruto got married in a politically arranged marriage by his godfather, a woman that Akeno had never seen, not even in pictures. Instead of Akeno getting angry or cutting Naruto off, Akeno waited until Naruto was officially married, before she offered herself to him. That first night had been amazing for her. The rest was history. From that point onward, Akeno had been given a key to Naruto's condo. She would then clean it once a week, since Naruto was gone fairly regularly, only in town once every 2 months nowadays. Akeno was brought out of her thoughts as Naruto grabbed his phone and looked at a text. He sighed before closing it and raising from his seat. "What's wrong, Daddy?" asked Akeno. Naruto smiled at Akeno, before leaning down and kissing her. "I have to take a quick business call, Akeno-chan," said Naruto. Akeno smiled. "Hurry back," said Akeno. Naruto walked out of the room and picked up the phone. "Hello, Yusaka-ne? Did you need something?" Naruto had a sister or sister figure. Interesting. Picking up her own phone, she looked at it and saw a total of 17 missed calls and 2 texts, all from Rias. Akeno frowned. She hated when her time with her lover was interrupted. She quickly called Rias. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. "Akeno, I've been calling all night," said Rias sternly over the phone. "Sorry, Rias, but I was doing something and didn't have my phone on. Aside from that, I had the weekend off," said Akeno, unapologetic. Asai over the phone told Akeno everything that she needed to know. "I know, Akeno, but please be more reasonable, especially when I need to speak with you on sensitive matters that are important," said Rias. "Of course, Rias, but what did you need from me?" asked Akeno. "I think that we've found our next member of my peerage," said Rias. "Oh, and who would that be?" asked Akeno. "Hyodo Ise," said Rias. Before Akeno could open her mouth, Naruto rounded the corner fully dressed. "Akeno, I have to leave for a bit," said Naruto. "What was that?" asked Rias in shock, hearing Amon's voice. "Nothing. I'll call you back, Rias. Bye," said Akeno quickly as she shut the phone. "Everything all right, Daddy?" asked Akeno. "Afraid not. I just got a text from my wife. My daughter got into some trouble in the States and her mother sent her on the first flight over here. Why she didn't tell me sooner I have no idea. My wife does some strange things," said Naruto. Akeno titled her head. This wasn't going to be good. "Do you need me to leave, Daddy?" asked Akeno. Naruto shook his head. "No, in fact you can stay. Honestly, I should have reigned in Kurumu a long time ago. Then again, a strip club is no place to raise a kid her age," said Naruto, rubbing his head. Akeno's face lit up hearing this. Naruto was married to a stripper. This was getting more and more interesting. If it was a political marriage he was under, what kind of sweet little girl he have? Or maybe the child was an affair baby. Oh, the possibilities. "So are you off to the airport?" asked Akeno. Naruto nodded. "Yeah," said Naruto before he leaned down and kissed Akeno. Naruto was out the door in record time. Once he was gone, Akeno sighed as she got up. No need to spend the entire day alone without her daddy. Might as well go and see Rias. Location: Kuo Place. Airport time: 1100. The airport of Kuo was bustling with activity as always. Even though it was only 11 in the morning, there was already a few incidents, mostly due to a young woman who had just arrived from the United States. Several young men looked at the young woman, tried talking to her, or outright trying to take advantage of her. If not for the fact that she was much stronger than she looked and had sent them flying with a punch, of course the security didn't do anything to her, as her charm was just that strong. Then again, being the daughter of an arch-succubus and the strongest creature alive that her father was, well, she was stronger than a normal succubus by a fair margin. At just 15 years old, Uzumaki Kurono Kurumu, she has shoulder-length light ocean blue hair that is tied in a ponytail with a purple-made headband that has one gold star on the left side. Deep purple eyes, thick long black eyelashes and large DD-cup breasts. Despite her soft, massive and bouncy breasts, she is also quite small, as she stands at 5 foot even, wearing long-sleeved white polo shirt with a red bow tie, plus a pale yellow-colored vest and a miniskirt that looks exactly like the school's uniform skirt, white baggy seifuku sailor fuku schoolgirl uniform socks and plain black dress shoes. She sat on the bench as she looked at her cell phone. She was currently annoyed with her mother for sending her away, just because she had corrupted all the men and women who had entered their den and started a mass orgy that she didn't even get to be in. Damn it, doesn't mean she should be sent away to her father, a man she was sure was going to be hers one day. Alexis pulled up to her, making her stand up. Naruto stepped out of his chair and walked around the car to stand in front of his child. Before Naruto could say anything, Kurumu flung herself at him. "Papa!" yelled Kurumu, squishing her breasts into Naruto's chest. Naruto wrapped his arms around Kurumu. "It's been a while, Mumu-chan," said Naruto with a smile. "Your Uncle Kurama and Aunt Yusaka miss you as well. Yusaka-ne even offered you a place in her Yukai school," said Naruto. Kurumu let Naruto go and pouted. "No way, Papa. I am going to attend school here." Naruto rubbed his head. While Senju Industries had an office here, it was one of the smaller satellite offices, while the main office was in Kyoto and the secondary office was in Tokyo. Honestly, it would be a bit of a pain to get his set up from the main office to here. "Let me get in contact with some people and get my stuff delivered here," said Naruto. "Yeah," yelled Kurumu. Naruto smiled and grabbed Kurumu's bags before putting them in his trunk. The door to Naruto's condo opened with Naruto and Kurumu walking in. Kurumu looked around before she turned to him with a wide smile. "Is this your love nest, Papa?" said Kurumu, taking a whiff of the air. "I can smell the pheromones in the air. They smell grand. If Mama was here, anyone who had sex with would have been knocked up." "I swear you're just like your mother and aunt," whispered Naruto. "Akeno. I am home." When no replay came, Naruto walked further into the condo and found a note left by Akeno. Apparently she had to get back to her king, as something urgent came up. She probably wouldn't see him for a few days. Naruto shrugged at this. He knew what being a devil entailed. Devils and the supernatural were something of an open secret in Kuo. It didn't take a lot to get into the know. Like most standard devil contracts, you were not allowed to reveal the supernatural to anyone not in the know, considering that 15% of Kuo Academy, just the high school branch, were supernatural beings, not even including the elementary, middle, and college levels. It was safe to say that rumor and myth were things in Kuo. If the CEO of Senju Industries had to give an estimated guess, about 40% of Kuo knew that the supernatural existed. Naruto chuckled. "This is just temporary. I have a crew from Kyoto cleaning my main house up and moving things from the head office here. I should be able to start working with my major equipment Wednesday, but I'll start working from the Senju branch office here tomorrow, although the director here is going to be in for a rude awakening," said Naruto as he sat Kurumu's things down. "What did the idiot do, Papa?" asked the blue-haired young woman. "He was embezzling funds, trying to sell company secrets, and harassing female employees," said Naruto. Kurumu frowned hearing this. "How was he able to get away with this for so long, Papa?" asked Kurumu. Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "Every time we had inspections and reviews coming up, he would make the complaints and evidence vanish. The head office of Kyoto is aware of the irregularities in the data that comes from Kuo, but we never could figure out where the disconnect came from. I personally never did the investigation, but since I have nothing better to do, I'll personally handle it this time. I do have to made one change though," said Naruto as he whipped out his phone and shot off a quick text. Kurumu went to the fridge and looked at the items in the fridge. She frowned. "Papa, your fridge is empty," said Kurumu. Naruto froze hearing this. He turned as she opened the cabinet and found his hidden ramen stash. Kurumu turned and allowed her wings, horns, tail and claws out. "Papa, what have I told you about eating nothing but instant ramen?" yelled Kurumu. Naruto took a gulp of air, knowing that he was a dead man. Location: Downtown Kuo Place, Senju Industries Hyodo Gurus IT Office. Time: 1100, Monday. Hyodo Goru wasn't anyone important. He was a middle manager in Senju Industries working in the HR department of the Kuo branch. Senju Industries was large, having over 500,000 workers across Japan. The Kuo branch only had 1,000 employees, of course. Some people hated working at the Kuo branch, mainly due to the director, Akari Gendo. The man did a lot of things that Goru tried to report to the main office, but Gendo was scary good at what he did. Information was his power and he had absolute control of all the information that came out of Kuo, but that was due to the fact of those who were on his payroll. Medical director Akaji Ritsuka and IT manager Ibiki Maya just so happened to be his two key allies. Goru knew the reason for this. Ritsuka was the lover of Gendo and Maya was in love with Ritsuka and would do anything for her, and while Maya was the IT manager, she could flag Seteran words within their local system, before they ever left to the main servers, so despite Gurus' best efforts he was never able to flag Gendo for anything. He had even tried keeping a separate date folder on his personal computer, but because of a data linkage for work the files got flagged and deleted. Maya had told him that he needed to stop. Sure, she wasn't devoted to Gendo and was a nice young lady, but her love for Ritsuka would force her hand if he kept trying. That was a year ago, and since then Goru had stopped trying to bust Gendo and allowed him to do as he pleased. It wasn't that he didn't want to get the bastard out, but he had his wife and son to think about. A knock on his office door. "Come in," said Goru. The door opened and in walked the man who was just in his thoughts alongside his pet Hare. Goru rose to his feet and gave a bow to Gendo, as much as he hated Dongsa to such a loathsome man. "Akari-san. Welcome," said Goru. Gendo adjusted his yellow glasses. "As much as I hate to do this, I needed to come and see you in person," said Gendo. "About what, Akari-san?" asked Goru. Ritsuka cleared her voice. "We received word this morning from the main office that Uzumaki-sama himself would be working from this branch for a period of a year," said Ritsuka. "Uzumaki-sama? The young heir to the previous president," said Goru. "Correct. Since we will have the young president himself, I will personally guide him to be a better president," said Gendo. "More like try and bind him to your way of thinking," thought Goru. "All key leaders will be meeting with him today when he arrives, that includes you," said Gendo. Goru didn't say anything and walked out of the office with Ritsuka and Goru following. Since they were on the 4th floor of the building, they took the elevator to the lobby where their head of security awaited. A former major in the JSDF and one of the few people that wasn't an ally or an enemy of Gendo, Katsuragi Misato. Misato was as beautiful as she was kind, funny, and tactically brilliant young woman with long dark violet hair that is wavy with bangs parted to the sides and dark brown eyes. She wears a sleeveless black flapper dress with a cross necklace. A fancy red jacket with stylized accents and having the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, a black watch on her left wrist and black ankle boots. Goru had always liked Misato. Not only was she a kind person, but she was funny. Oh, and next to her was the vice director of the branch, Fuatsuki Kozo, Gendo's only enemy in the entire company. There were other executives and department heads around, but Maya, Ritsuka, Fuatsuki, Misato, and Gendo were the 5 heads of the entire branch. The door to the front lobby opened and in walked Uzumaki Naruto and a woman that was easily a goddess in human form. She stood at 55 with probably the most regular-sized breasts that he had seen in Kuo in years, being only a moderate C-cup, had a long, straight, blue, hair bound with taut bandages, dark eyes, and she wore red lipstick. Her flame blue eyes reminded him of a cat for some odd reason. She wore a simple blue skirt suit. If Goru could see into Gendo's mind, he would see the plans that he had for not only the young Uzumaki, but the woman as well. Gendo bowed with the executives following. "Uzumaki-sama, it is a pleasure to have you grave our building," said Gendo. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Matabi?" asked Naruto. "This is Director Akari Gendo, age 48 years of age, has 2 children that attend Eva Private Academy in Tokyo, is married to research agent Akari Yui who works in the Tokyo offices, in the grand scheme of the business offices of Senju Industries, who would be ranked number 52 in terms of importance," said Matabi. "That's quite impressive, Miss Matabi, Nibi Matabi, personal assistant to Uzumaki-sama, and in the office ranks I would be the 12th most important person in the company," said Matabi. Gendo frowned at this, but as quick as it appeared it disappeared. "Understood, Nibi-san. We have already cleared locations on the 9th floor for your office, Uzumaki-sama," said Gendo. Naruto nodded. "It better be the head office that is supposed to be clear in each building in case I need to make it my office as is stated in every contract," said Naruto as he examined his fingers. "I would hate to have to fire you for misconduct." "Of course, it is Uzumaki-sama," said Gendo, hiding his anions at the upstart brat. "Also, we will be having a meeting at noon to go over things about this branch. I expect all executives and department heads in my office. Anyone who has other plans or thinks that they can ignore me will fins themselves out of the job. Please do not test me," said Naruto. Naruto and Matabi entered the elevator. One inside, Matabi unleashed a burst of supernatural energy, frying the listening devices and cameras. "That's coming out of your check," said Naruto. "You know why I did it. Most of those devices were unofficial, used by a power-hungry fool to control his empire of glass," said Matabi. Naruto chuckled. "True, I could feel his lust for you throughout our talk," said Naruto. Matabi rubbed up against Naruto, and began to rub him though his pants. "If we didn't have so much work to do, I'd rip those pants off you and suck you dry of all that milk," said Matabi. Naruto smirked and groped Matabi's breasts, making her moan. "Who said that you wouldn't be under my desk all day?" growled Naruto as his eyes turned yellow, before taking her mouth in a passionate kiss. Location: Kuo Academy Place, Class 1 seed time, 1100. Kaneko was bored as she sat on the middle. The white-haired young woman who was the school's mascot wanted nothing more than to get out of classes and do something. Rias and the others were already at lunch and Kaneko was going to be by herself at lunch. "And so if you divide A by 15 you can get the answer C," said the teacher. Kaneko wanted to ignore him as he droned on and on. She was actually on the verge of sleeping when she felt it. She looked at the door and her eyes narrowed. A strong yokai aura. What is it doing here? Why didn't Sona-sama or her peerage intervene? Thought Kaneko as she prepared to reveal her devil side if needed. The door opened and in walked the principal of the high school division. He pulled the teacher aside and began to talk. Kaneko wasn't concerned about what they were talking about, her entire focus was on the yokai that was just outside of the door. The teacher nodded and stood before the class and clapped her hands, getting their attention. Okay class, we have a new student joining us. She's a transfer student from all the way from the United States. Please come in, said the teacher. Kaneko was on guard as she awaited whoever was coming through the door. What she got was more than she bargained for. Instantly all the guys started to drool and look at the blue-haired beauty that wandered into the room and up to the board and wrote her name in perfect Japanese, Kurono Kurumu. The girl turned and Kaneko instantly had a dislike of this woman, although it had nothing to do with her large chest cough, a cup angst cough. No, her aura was that of an B-class yokai. Unlike devils that ranked themselves from low to super class and the angel caste, be it pure or fallen, that used their number of wings as an indicator of how powerful they were, yokai used a ranking system of FSS. There were even rumors of SSS class and even AO class yokai. Hello everyone. My name is Kurono Kurumu. I am 15 years old and I hope we can get along, said Kurumu, winking at the class. Everyone went crazy and began to throw questions at her. Many asking if she had a boyfriend, her 3 sizes, and other such questions. Kurumu took it all in and answered what she could, but told everyone that while she was proud of her 3 sizes she would keep that to herself. Once everything was calm she was told to sit in the empty desk next to Kaneko, too. As Kurumu sat down she turned to Kaneko and stuck her hand out. Hi, I am Kurumu. Kaneko looked at her hand, before taking it, Taju Kaneko. Kurumu smiled. I hope we can be good friends, Kaneko-chan. Location: Downtown Kuo Place, Senju Industries, Uzumaki Naruto's office. Time: 1900. The 9th floor office was massive, big enough to fit 2 studio apartments inside of it. All the windows were ceiling high. Naruto sighed in annoyance as he read the reports that were on his desk. The Kuo branch was a bigger mess than he thought. Naruto was going to have to do a lot to fix it. The meeting had run longer than intended and Akari had tried to take control and worm his way into the picture as Naruto's right-hand man. He was just glad that Matabi shut it down before it got too far. Gendo definitely had an iron hold on the company in this location, but Naruto had a plan to fix that, but he was going to need help from 3 people to disrupt Gendo's power base. The knock on his door was his first of those 3 meetings. Enter, said Naruto. The door opened and in walked Hyodo Goru. The man walked and stood several feet away from Naruto's desk. You wanted to see me, sir? Asked Goru. Yes, I do. You see, Akari-san thinks that the Kyoto offices are blind to what he's been doing, but we're not. In fact, we know what he's been up to since my father was in charge, said Naruto. Goru opened his mouth, but none of the things I've done have gotten out of this office. Which is why I am giving you this, said Naruto, reaching into his desk and pulling out a mini laptop. It looked no bigger than a handheld gaming device. This has a direct link to the head office servers. Anything that you post there will be reviewed by the head offices, and since I know Gendo is going to try something, I have my team back at Kyoto looking into his accounts. Do your part and hell be out of here within a month. Goru didn't know what to say, but he knew a plan when he saw one. Hi Uzumaki-sama, said Goru, before he left the office. Once he was gone, Naruto grunted as he felt a release of deep satisfaction. He rolled his chair back and looked at Matabi, who was licking her lips of his excess seed, before she planted a kiss on his cock. Thanks for the meal, Naruto-sama, said Matabi. Naruto sighed. Don't you have a job to do, you horny cat? Asked Naruto. Matabi rose from her knees and straddled Naruto's waist. She sighed in content as she felt him in the deepest parts of her womb. Of course. My job is to take care of your professional life as well as take care of this bitch breaker you got here, moaned Matabi as she began to rock her hips. Naruto's hands went to her hips. You're such a slut, groaned Naruto, enjoying the feeling of her walls. Only for you, Naruto-sama. Now Kitty wants you to knock her up like you've done to several sluts and bitches over the years, moaned Matabi. A month. That's how long it had been since the fallen angels had moved into Kuo. A month since they had set up shop at the abandoned church. A month since the yokai had come into Kuo. A month since she had discovered that Hyodo Issei had a sacred gear inside of him. A month was a long time to Rias. Aseptically, with her problem looming in the background. Personally, she would rather have settled this with words alone. Reaching out, she picked up the pawn that was on her chessboard and moved it before the kingpiece. A knight, a rook, a bishop that she couldn't use, and a queen. From the outside looking in, her peerage was weak mess. Although it didn't matter. Her friends were her family, and her family was the strongest out of all the young devils since 2 of her current 4 pieces were sacred gear users. She could win, but it would take sacrifice, one she wasn't willing to make. Turning again, she looked at the board that contained 5 pictures of prospective people for her peerage. The Kendo Club co-captains Murayama and Katase, the second most perverted girl in the school Ika Kiryu, the former baseball-playing bald pervert Matsuda, and then the below-average young man, Issei. All of them would have made good pieces for different reasons. Murayama and Katase were actually pretty good swordswomen and they would complement well with Kiba's sacred gear sword birth. Ika Kiryu because she had a latent talent for magic if Akeno was to be believed. Then there was Matsuda, he was a strong young man and he could easily be a defensive-style rook. Then there was Issei, the prize among them all and the person that she knew was going to be her pawn. He was a basic pervert, was destined to live an average life and die an average human, were it not for something as simple as the fact that he had an unknown sacred gear. The only reason that Rias kept such a close eye on him, normally she wouldn't have bothered with him, the feeling of a gear didn't mean anything, it was Kaneko who helped her figure it out. The smell of a sleeping dragon coming from his left arm. Rias, like many devils, had researched to a bit of research into the sacred gears. Rias in particular studied the 2 great dragons, the White Emperor Dragon and the Red Emperor Dragon, and it was well known that the Red Dragon Emperor is normally housed in the left arm of his host. The others were just there as a fallback. The door to her office opened and Akeno walked into the room. "What is it, Akeno?" asked Rias, turning to the door. "Yesterday, right after school ended, a fallen angel made contact with Hyodo Issei. We need to move forward with Plan B." Rias looked at her pawn. "I was afraid you would say that," said the red-haired she-devil before picking it up and moving it forward to D4. Location: Kuo Town Place, Senju Industries Kuo Branch, Naruto's office. Time: 1200. Matabi sighed as she walked into Naruto's office. Normally she would be quite excited to enter her lover's office. While it didn't seem like it at times, Matabi was a consumerist professional. She was Naruto's right-hand woman, she would do anything for him. After they had come to this world several thousand years ago, Naruto had released her siblings to do as they pleased. The tailed beasts scattered across the globe. Sure, their influential natural powers had influenced some myths, natural disasters, and the like, but they never did it on purpose. It wasn't until they disappeared one by one that it became clear. The tailed beasts had come under attack. Everyone from Isobu to Geiki vanished within the span of 50 years. It was probably 200 or so years before the start of the biblical wars that the angels began to hunt down Matabi. It was sometime after she had given birth to the 3rd generation of Nekosho with her then husband and Nekomata. Matabi had actually been minding her own business, living in a rural village in Japan. She had also barely given birth to her 3rd litter. What cats tended to give birth to quintuples and the like fairly regularly? She had been laying about after feeding her children when she felt the appearance of the angels. An entire battalion of angels had come to conscript them for their army over mounting tensions with their fallen brethren in the devils. Their leader at the time had been someone who had 8 wings, a weakling in her eyes, but Matabi was only about an eighth as powerful as she was, but she refused to allow them to attack her village. She had went on the offense, and for 45 of the most painful minutes of her life she fought and fought and fought. All in the name of her family. In the time that she had defended the village, her husband and a few of the warriors and hunters managed to get her people and children to safety before joining the fight. Sadly, her husband had died during the battle. He fell protecting a comrade. When they had been pushed back and all hope was lost, Naruto, Kurama, and Shukaku showed up, and between the 3 of them managed to turn the tide of battle in their favor. Shortly after the battle, Matabi would fall into a 100-year coma. All she knew was during her nap the war of the biblical factions ended and her people and children had scattered throughout the human world and underworld. Matabi fell into depression for a time, but Naruto had brought her out of it and even introduced her to Kurama and his primary mate Yusaka, who helped heal her. Following this, Matabi found herself working under Naruto as his second in command. Over the next 100 years she would help him take the battle to angels, fallen, devils, other Yukai factions, even the Shinto gods. Before she knew it, she had fallen in love with the boy who at one point was like a little brother to her. Soon after the Shinto, Jade Empire War, at which point the Yukai and Shinto had become one major faction, Matabi and Naruto had become lovers. They had never had children, more due to Matabi's own fear of losing them again than anything else. Naruto had told her that he understood and would wait for her to find her children so that they could be together. That day would never come, as over the years what had become a thriving population of children with her blood had divulged to a trickle of its former glory. Matabi shook her head and walked up to Naruto and security chief Misato, or rather she walked in on them as Misato was bouncing on her lover's cock like a cheap whore, as Naruto looked over paperwork. "Fuck. Uzumaki-sama, you're so much better than Kaji ever was. yelled Misato as her eyes rolled into the back of her head. 1. Naruto didn't acknowledge her aside from a grunt of pleasure here or there as he was trying to do work. Matabi wanted to laugh. Naruto had managed to break Misato within a week of him taking over, and it wasn't intentional either. One of Naruto's unique abilities was that he released a pheromone that unmated women found irresistible. Even with his abilities sealed off, it was still strong enough to make beings like lower-level fallen, devils, monsters of C rank and humans still want to jump his bones. In regular relationships, a person would get annoyed if their partner went around fucking anything with a pair of legs, but Matabi knew that Naruto would have multiple mates or lovers. Misato probably wouldn't even be a permanent fixture in Naruto's harem. Could you even call 2 wives, occasional lover, and a devil booty call not aware of the others a lover? What's up, Tabi-chan? Asked Naruto. Well, we got the information back from HQ. It's worse than we thought, said Matabi. Naruto took the folder from her and narrowed his eyes as Misato screamed in his ear as she came before passing out. Human instrumentality with a rouge group of angels, Nerve and Seal, Eva, the complete merger of the human counselsiness into one. This man is out of his damn mind, said Naruto before sheathing himself inside of Misato and releasing a small load inside of her before pulling out. Misato fell onto the desk, a twitching mess as her lower lips kept trying to milk what wasn't there. So what are we going to do about it? Asked Matabi. Naruto shrugged shoulders. No need to rush. According to this information, human instrumentality is at least 3 years off and would require the destruction of half of humanity and the revival of the ancestral race. Of course the math was off by a wide margin, but it didn't matter. Even if they were off by a few, messing with forces that even the Pythons didn't want anything to do with was unwise. Tell Yasaka that I need 8 assault teams prepared and ready to move out at my command. I have a time frame, but it's not going to happen for at least another 3 weeks to 4 months, said Naruto. Anything else, Naruto-kun? Asked Matabi. Naruto gave Misato's ass a solid smack, activating the seal that he had put on there the first night her had fucked her into oblivion. I'll be with Kurumu-chan this Saturday, so unless it's an emergency that needs my direct supervision, I am not to be troubled. Also get Misato dressed and back to her post. I'd rather she not come to and find herself here, especially since I activated the seal. Understood, Uzumaki-sama, said Matabi, slipping back into the character of just a loyal secretary. Location: Kuo Town Place, Central Park, Eastern Fountain. Time: 1900. The father-daughter duo of Uzumaki Naruto and Uzumaki Kurono Kurumu had been an utter success if you asked Naruto. They had to pretend to be brother and sister in most locations. Naruto had taken Kurumu eating, shopping, and to the Fairies' Wool. All in all, it had been a marvelous day. Currently the duo were walking around the park. Papa, when are you going to call Mama and Andy here? Asked Kurumu. Naruto chuckled. You and I both know your mama is someone who plays by her own rules, said Naruto. Kurumu sighed. Truth. I mean, she hasn't had to really feed on anyone in a long time, said Kurumu. A common misconception about suckbui was that sex was the only way they feed. It wasn't true. They actually could feed just by entering someone's dreams. Sex was just easier to get the power they needed. Last time Naruto had been with Agaya and her sister Kairo Shade last year. Honestly, he wasn't sure how he didn't end up impregnating both of them, a queen and arch. Of course that night 7 members of their den ended up pregnant, just not with his kids. Naruto and Kurumu looked at each other as they felt a barrier activate. Looking around for the source of the barrier, they found it. It was coming from an attractive young woman with violet eyes having a slender body. She had long silky black hair down to her hips and possessed 2 black feathered wings wearing black, strap-like objects around and under her breasts, a thong-like piece held around her hips by 3 thin straps, gloves that ran right up her arms with small lengths of chains hanging from them, shoulder guard-like objects on her shoulders with 3 large spikes sprouting from her right shoulder, and black thigh high heel boots. On her left wrist was a pink scrunchy bracelet. She had a boy's face in her hands. He was nothing special to look at, average height with short spiky brown hair, with 2 short locks of hair behind his head, and light brown eyes. He wore a black colored shirt, a gray sweater, skinny dark blue jean pants, and a white shirt over it. This was the son of Hyodo Goru, Issei. Well, Naruto couldn't let anything happen to him. He needed Goru to be effective at his job. Naruto sighed in annoyance. Kurumu held her arm tighter as they watched the fallen angel throw her spear at Gura's son. If looks were to be believed, Naruto shrugged Kurumu off. Before vanishing in a blur of static and sound, he appeared before Issei and caught the spear with his hand before crushing it. What? Asked Rainier, stepping backwards and glaring at Naruto. Who are you? Asked a terrified Issei. Naruto glanced at him for a second, before looking at Kurumu. Take this boy home, Kurumu. If you run into any more crows, I give you permission to do what you need to do to protect his life as well as yours, even up to full release, said Naruto. Kurumu appeared next to Issei and grabbed his arms, before sprouting wings. Yes, Papa, said Kurumu. And who do you think you are? Asked the fallen angel. Naruto looked at the girl before him closer. She looked really familiar. In less than a second his brain searched thought years and found a woman who looked like her. It was of a wedding, a forbidden love. You're Azazel's kid. You look like your mother, if I remember correctly, Sarah, said Naruto. Hare stiffened at the mention of her mother, a human excommunicated nun. Excommunicated because she tasted that which is forbidden to all maidens serving under the Lord's name, sex. To the best of her knowledge, Sarah was the only woman her father had lain with. This led to both Azazel's fall from grace and the start of the Grigori. This was the reason that she had never seen the grace and glory of heaven. But the stiffness quickly left her body. With a roar of anger she pooled all of her energy into the spear as a second pair of wings burst from her back, dripping blood as she created another pink spear and threw it at Naruto. The spear was only feet from Naruto, before he caught it and crushed it. Hare looked at Naruto in slight fear. No human should have been able to stop the attack of a four-winged fallen angel. Vanishing from her sight, Hare looked around as she heard the sound of static every few seconds. Naruto appeared before her and went for a punch, but stopped shy of her face. Hare was about to mock him, but was blown away by an unseen force. Whatever had hit her was too strong for her to correct herself in time. She was sent though several trees almost 100 feet away from where Naruto was. Naruto pulled his fist back and looked at it. Way too much force, said Naruto. Hare flew into the air panting. She was bleeding from several wounds and other such injuries. Wiping her mouth, she glared at him again. Who are you? From the fact that I can't sense a demonic aura on you, I'd say you're no devil. Nor do I feel any holy energy, so you're no angel, and I know all fallen thanks to my father, so who are you? A yokai. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. The fact is that if I tell you who, or more specifically what I am, it's going to open a can of worms so big it will make the biblical war seem like a schoolyard scuffle. It's been more than 100 years since I've had to actively get involved with anyone other than the vampire and western monster factions. Don't make me get involved in a pissing contest between two little girls and their friends, said Naruto. If you don't tell me now, I'll cut you to ribbons, you bastard, yelled Hare. Naruto sighed. Before he looked at Hare dead in her eyes, before Hare knew it, she felt something akin to primal fear gripping at her head. She began to hyperventilate before falling from the sky and laying on her ground, barely managing to get to her hands and knees, before pissing herself in fear. Looking back to the man, she saw that he was now mere feet away from her. She scrambled backwards in sheer terror, trying to find her voice. Monster! Yelled Hare, as tears began to run down her face. Monster is a subjective term. To a canary, a cat is a monster. You're just used to being the cat, said Naruto. Hare didn't stick around any further as she flew off into the night. She had to tell the others, to warn them. Stay away from the whiskered man with blonde hair and eyes that could invoke fear on a level that not even her father could do. She had to warn them of the creature that existed from the old war. The strongest creature was in Kuo and wanted to be left alone. Location: Kuo Town Place, Hyodo Residence, Issei's room. Time: 19:05. Kurumu flew Issei to his house. Before pushing the window open and flying in before dropping Issei on his bed, Kurumu landed on her feet. Before putting both her hands out and muttering a few words, a blue barrier appeared around the room, preventing sound from escaping as well as any supernatural power above a certain level from being felt. Kurumu turned to Issei and found that he was a drooling mess. Oops, forgot to turn off the charm, said Kurumu as she pulled her excess power in. It took a moment, but Issei was able to regain his composure before shaking his head. Where am I? The last thing I remember is, Yuma tried to kill me, said Issei. Kurumu leaned on the desk. Yeah, that tends to happen from time to time, said Kurumu. Issei looked at Kurumu and couldn't help but focus in on her breasts, those large lovely bouncing orbs that were just out in the open aside from a thin bikini keeping her nips from view, a super thong and black wings and horns, wait, wings and horns. What the hell are you? Asked Issei. Kurumu rubbed her head while ignoring the fact that Issei was staring at her tits. She was used to it at this point. Normally my dad would answer this, but I am a succubus and you, my friend, have just found yourself in the supernatural world all because you wanted to get your dick wet, said Kurumu. The room grew eerily quiet after the bombshell that Kurumu dropped on Issei. Supernatural? Fallen angel? Succubus. Wait, a succubus, the sex demon that had sex with men and took their life force though they're junk, and she was a hot piece of ass if he ever saw one. Damn, this was a blessing if he ever saw one. He had to shoot his shot. Right here, right now. And if he failed, Well, he had some decent spank bank material. Will you have sex with me? Asked Issei almost desperately. Kurumu laughed. Sorry hun, it's not that simple. Even with the power you possess, you're not even on my radar for a destined one, darling, said Kurumu. Power? Unless I have a legendary dong or something, I am nothing but a regular high school guy, said Issei. Not according to all the females in school. You're the leader of the perverted trio. However, considering that your dick is actually pretty big, I am shocked you haven't gotten a girlfriend yet, said a grinning Kurumu. 1. School. You go to Kuo Academy? Asked Issei. Kurumu stuck out her tongue. Uzumaki Kurono Kurumu. Class 1C. Heiress to Arch Succubus Kurono Agaya. Nice to meet ya, Issei-san. So what happens now? Asked Issei. Kurumu took out her phone. Nothing. We wait here until Papa calls me and I go home. I am just going to shop until I get the okay to leave. Feel free to jack off to my tits. Personally, I don't really care. Issei sighed as he tried to wrap his head around everything that had happened. That and the fact that a beautiful babe was in his room, and the fact that he really wanted to rub one out to the beautiful girl in front of him wasn't helping matters. Location. Kuo Academy Place, Orc Clubhouse time, 1930. Rias paced back and forth in her office. It had been over 30 minutes since the sun had set and still her magic circle had not triggered. The plan had been easy and slightly outside of the rules of devil reincarnation that had been established in the truce. A person had to be asked to be reincarnation of their own volition. However, a loophole had been discovered. A person who died, but had a strong will, could be reincarnated within 5 to 15 minutes before they fully passed on, beyond even heaven or hell, the true afterlife, a place no one had ever been. Akeno summoned Kiba and Kaneko from their contracts. Tell them it is an emergency situation. We need to investigate why Hyodo-san hasn't summoned me yet, said Rias. Akeno nodded as it was indeed strange. She pulled out her cell phone and was about to text them in their group chat, but was stopped at the sound of static behind her. Akeno held up her hands, summoning lighting and turning to attack the person behind her, only for her hand to be stopped. Is that any way to greet me, Akeno? Asked the person. Akeno, yelled Rias as she summoned her own power of destruction. Get away from her or I'll see you to the underworld. Please calm down, Rias, said Akeno calmly as Naruto released. I guess it's best that I introduce you. Rias, this is Uzumaki Naruto, president of Senju Industries, one of my clients, and my lover, although he has some explaining to do. Rias' jaw dropped open. She had always known about Akeno's desire to have a lover from an affair, but she didn't think she would try it until Rias got a boyfriend, although this did leave her the question of how this man got past their defensive barriers. Naruto chuckled. You got me there, Akeno-chan. First and foremost, allow me to apologize. While you are correct in my title as president of Senju Industries, that is my human title. I have more than one supernatural title. However, I'll tell you my original title, the Demon Shinobi, said Naruto. Rias and Akeno both gasped hearing his name. The Demon Shinobi had been an enemy of the new Satan faction during the Devil Civil War. He was responsible for killing off at least 8 pillar families single-handedly. He had also fought all the Satans at least one-on-one, and in one of the most famous battles he had fought Searzex and Ajuka in a 2-on-1 situation, and he had escaped with his life, although after that fight he vanished. Many assumed that he had died from his injuries. Apparently that wasn't the case. Rias narrowed her eyes. You still wanted in the underworld for the crimes you committed during the war, said Rias. Naruto smiled at this. The history books are written by the victors. Had the old faction won, I would have been a hero. Good to know you guys have long memories, but honestly, I don't really care. I am not a citizen or subject to the laws of the devil faction as a whole, said Naruto, taking his seat in the chair at Race desk. Rias stepped behind her desk, but had sent a message off to Kiba and Kaneko to arrive as quickly as possible. So what do you want? Asked Rias, keeping a small ball of destruction hidden in her hand. You can put that power away. It would do you as well as that butter knife on your table. I am here to parley. What I want from you, and want nothing, except for you to honor the treaty and not convenient its laws about the evil peace system, said Naruto. Rias reluctantly released the ball in her hand. How do you know about that? Asked Rias with narrowed eyes. The evil peace system isn't exactly a secret, especially after what your idiot brother and the other Satans failed to stop a retaliation attack on a Yukai village because a reincarnated devil went rouge, a protected Yukai village at that, said Naruto with narrowed eyes. That had nothing to do, started Rias. Child, I am not going to get into this with you. That situation is way above your pay grade and sits in your brother and Seraphil's court, as it was on them to keep devils in line. I am not here to argue morality and who's at fault in that situation. I am here to tell you to not get the people of this city caught up within your fight, said Naruto. Rias narrowed her eyes. Kuo is the shared territory of the Hare Gremmery and Seatree. We care deeply about all those who reside within our territory, from out servants to those unaffiliated. Naruto leaned back in his chair. This territory is on loan to those clans from the greater Shinto, Yukai faction that rules all of Japan. Devil's primary territory on Earth is Europe, and since the eradication of the Americas pantheons all of North America, your claims to this territory can be revoked if certain conditions are met, one of which is the forcing of someone into your peerage against their will or facilitating the death of one who is unaware of the supernatural. Also tell your knight and rook that they need to practice their stealth skills. Naruto turned and caught Kaniko's fist in Kiba's blade. He gave Kiba a once-over, before looking at Kaniko. Naruto's eyes widened slightly, before he released them both. Before they could attack again, all four members of the orc were on their hands and knees, each of them having seen their death multiple times over. Kaniko was throwing up. Akeno eyes blank, as if she had shut down to spare herself to pain of the aura that was inside of the room. Kiba was shaking like a lead, but on closer inspection he was barely holding on from taking his own life. Rias was the first to recover. After taking a big gulp of air, her hand shot to her forehead where he had used a finger and pierced her brain, before her hand moved to her heart where Naruto had ripped it out, and looked at Naruto, who had returned to his seat. Rias looked at him with narrowed eyes. "Please stop looking at me with such hateful eyes, Miss Gremmery. I only released a bit of my killing intent to stop a fight before it started," said Naruto. "Such pure hate, there's no way you could have hidden it the way you did," said Kaniko as wiped her mouth. Naruto looked at Kaniko from the corner of his eyes with pity. "Child, you have no idea how much hate I've had to hold back over the many years I've been alive, how much pain I've had to endure, how much blood I've had to spill. It grows heavy on your soul after so long," said Naruto as he stood up and reached into his pocket. He produced a business card and placed it on Rias' desk. "What are you doing?" asked Rias, managing to get to her seat. "While it's been a long time since I've actively fought or trained anyone, I am still a mercenary at heart. I am giving you a chance to hire me if you need me," said Naruto. "Why?" asked Rias. Naruto walked over to Akeno and picked her up, before placing her on the couch, before tapping her forehead and sending her into a dreamless sleep with a seal that would help repair her mind. He then grabbed his cell phone and sent a text to Kurumu. "Believe it or not, regardless of how we met, I've found myself falling in love with Akeno-chan here. You're her master and best friend. I don't care about what you devils or other beings in the supernatural community get up to, but anyone who harms mine will find themselves in for a world of pain," said Naruto as he vanished in a burst of static. Rias looked at the card on her desk. If his offer was true, then he was invaluable. Location: Kuo Academy Place. Abandoned Crouch Time, 0020. Rainier sat on her busted throne inside of the abandoned church. She kept replaying the events of the evening over and over in her mind. That man, he had been so strong, so dominating. She shivered in fear at the thought of fighting this man again. She whined as she felt her second pair of wings flex themselves. Anger had pushed her over the edge and past her power threshold. She was already powerful compared to the others, but now even with her power doubled, she was still nowhere near as powerful as that man who she had fought. "What's eating you, Rainier?" asked a woman who came down from the rafters and landed before her friend. A tall and buxom woman with brown eyes and long, navy blue hair that obscured her right eye, a maroon, trenchcoat-like top with a wide collar, a matching miniskirt, and black-heeled shoes. The trenchcoat top was open at her chest, giving view to her breasts and cleavage. She also wore a gold necklace around her neck. Behind her back was a single pair of wings. This was Kalawarna, Rainire's best friend. "Where are the other two?" asked Rainier. "Donasek decided that he was going to go on a midnight stroll, while Middle is looking for a good fuck tonight," said Kalawarna as she straddled Rainire's lap. "Not the point. What's eating you, love?" Rainier sighed as she leaned back in the chair. "The person who stopped me from killing Issei knew my mother," said Rainier. Kalawarna knew that Rainire's mother was a sore subject for her. Rainier had been born during the Crusades, a time where Kalawarna herself had already been on the verge of falling due to her own anger at the fact that devils were killing her friends. When Azazel fell, it took years for her to follow after the man. But later on she became good friends with Azazel's lover and later something of a godmother, mentor to Rainier. Kalawarna was heartbroken when she died when she reached the end of her natural lifespan. She had taught Rainier how to summoning her spear, taught her how to fight, she had even taught Rainier how to kiss. It was safe to say that she loved Rainier, be it as a sister, friend or even lover was hard to say. Even Kalawarna didn't know for sure. It was one of the reasons she had followed Rainier on this mission, not out of loyalty to Azazel or the rest of the cadre, but loyalty to Rainier. "I'll handle things, Rainier. Just be prepared for the girl to come soon," said Kalawarna, giving Rainier a light kiss on the lips, before she took off into the night sky. Rainier sighed. That's right, Issei wasn't her only goal. Getting up, she pulled out one of her father's books on sacred gears. Turning to the page that she had been looking at, she read it over again. The Power of Twilight Healing. Location: Kuo Town Place, Senju Industries, Naruto's office. Time: 16:45. Gendo and Ritsuka walked towards Naruto's office, Gendo in a huff, while Ritsuka was just trying to keep up. Once he was upon the large doors that lead to Naruto's office, he threw them open and glared at Naruto, who wasn't at his desk, but seated at what amounted to a small lab, eating a bowl of ramen as he read over something. Naruto turned to Gendo and slurped up his noodles. I don't remember calling for you, Gendo, said Naruto. Gendo narrowed his eyes. No, I needed to come and speak to you about something you did, said Gendo. Naruto set down his noodles. Oh, and what is that? Ritsuka stepped up. Sir, why did you feel the need to shut down Terminal Dogma? That location housed at least 70% of this branch's information and research, said Ritsuka. Naruto put a hand on his forehead, before he snapped. Oh, that place. Yeah, I had to shut it down since it was drawing too much energy and data. It also seems that my executive position as president of the company didn't allow me entry into the terminal. There was a good reason for that, sir. I personally vetoed everyone who works the terminal, and unfortunately, since you haven't been vetoed, I couldn't allow you access. The process was in place before you got here and I never got around to getting you access, said Gendo. Naruto nodded. Understood, Gendo, but it still needed to be shut down, exceptly if one of our rival companies caught wind of it. I am not opposed to reopening the terminal, but I need it to go under revision, said Naruto. Gendo looked at Naruto and opened his mouth to speak, but stopped himself. Terminal Dogma was only one of 5 facilities that housed their data. It just so happened to be that Dogma was easier to manage under his watchful eye. The terminals in America and Germany were under SEELE's direct control and would be annoying to get access to. However, they still needed the resources of Senju Industries, so their alliance was still needed. Gendo would achieve his goals, and so long as this fool didn't get in his way, then he would count to be a useful pawn. Very well, Uzumaki-san. I hope that we can get this unfortunate issue resolved, said Gendo. Ritsuka and Gendo left, leaving Naruto to his own devices. Location: Kuo Town Place. Streets. Time: 1900. Issei walked down the street. He had just left Motohama's house. A lot of things had happened over the course of the last day. He had spoken to Kurumu, who had only gotten permission to tell him about herself and the basics of the largest of the factions, the biblical faction, and how it was basically divided. He had spent the last day basically lost in his own world. Hell, even getting invited to Motohama's to watch Ring X Mama Volume 3. The title bout wasn't enough to get him out of his funk. So it was a confused young man who made his way home. As he didn't notice that the streets became barren. The sound of cars and street vendors vanished. Well, I didn't think I'd get the cutie that Rainier let get away, came a voice. Issei looked up and saw that he was looking at a blonde-haired girl, a black Lolita dress with white frills, a large black bow on the front, and a green jewel embedded on the collar, white thigh-high socks, and black shoes. She also wore a large black bow on top of her hair. Who are you? Asked Issei as he took a step backwards from the girl. While he didn't understand it, his instincts were screaming at him to run. The girl smirked as she summoned a pink spear and threw it at Issei. Issei could do nothing as the spear pierced his stomach. Issei was thrown off his feet and hit the ground, couching up blood. The Lolita floated over, laughing. I can't believe how easy that was. Rainier will be happy to know that I killed you, gloated the girl before flying away. Issei coughed as he reached out. He didn't want to die. Sure, he had seen some nice tits, but he was still a virgin. I don't want to die, said Issei, as he began to bleed out. As Issei began to bleed out, a small circle appeared in his jacket pocket. It glowed bright red as a young woman with long red hair appeared. She looked at Issei. Do you wish to live? Asked the woman. Issei nodded. Too weak to speak. The young woman smiled. Then be reborn as my servant and fight in my name. Become a servant for the house of Gremory, Rias Gremory, said the young woman, too. Issei couldn't keep his eyes open and fell into slumber. Issei's eyes shot open as he took a gasp. Before sitting up, his hand went to his stomach where the spear had hit him. He knew that it wasn't a dream since Kurumu had explained what she could to him, but that didn't explain why he was alive. He knew that he had died. You didn't dream the kind of pain that Issei felt. The last thing he remembered was that girl with red hair. Come back to bed, Issei. It's cold, came a sleepy voice. Issei froze hearing the voice. He moved the cover and saw the red-haired girl from yesterday, naked as the day she was born. She looked beautiful with the morning sun bathing her peach-colored skin in its warm light. Even compared to some of the models and porn stars, he would spank it till she was just on another level. Shaking his head, Issei let out a yelp and jumped out of bed, only to fall hard on his ass. The red-haired woman sat up and yawned. I asked for a few more minutes since last night drained me, but I guess now that you're up we can talk, said the redhead. Wait, drained you? Did we have sex last night? Because it would totally suck to forget that, said the brown-haired young man. Rias smiled, before winking. Sorry Issei, but that's not the case, actually. Do mind if I call you Eyes? Asked the woman. Not that I would ever mind a beautiful girl with nice tits waking up in my bed or giving me a nickname, but what the hell are you doing here? And if I remember right, you're Rias Gremory Senpai, said Issei in awe of the fact that the school idol was in his freaking room. The red-haired young woman smiled. You'd be correct, my name is Rias. Rias Gremory is for why I am here. My newest servant was badly hurt by a light spear, so I needed to share some of my magic with him to heal him, and the type of healing I did works best with skin-to-skin contact, said the young woman. Servant. What am I, some kind of sex slave to you or something? Asked Issei. Rias crossed her arms under her breasts and smirked. Before Issei could ask what was so funny, as her foot came up and began to fondle Issei's rapidly hardening junk. Issei moaned slightly at this. Rias was actually pretty good at using her foot. Coming up with her second foot, she used her feet in tandem to make Issei feel amazing. Rias did this for about 2 minutes, bringing Issei closer and closer to release. Issei tried to keep from coming since Rias' feet felt so damn good. 1. Fucking hell. I am about to bust the fattest nut of my life, all because of this sexy redhead. Thought Issei. If I wanted to turn you into my boy toy, I could do so as easy as giving you a foot job. Under devil law, as a high-class devil, any low-class devil who is a servant of mine must follow all orders given by their master, said Rias as she stopped her foot job, just as Issei was close to coming, blue-balling him, before she got up and pulled on a lace purple-black thong. Issei groaned slightly and opened his mouth to ask something else, only for his door to be opened by his mother Hyodo, Miki, and Kurumu. Issei-kun, your friend Kurumu is here, she said. That shish, started Miki as she looked at her son's hard-on and the beautiful girl in her son's room. Both Issei and Kurumu looked on in shock at Rias, who just smiled. Hello mother, I am. You devil bitch. You dare go against my father's words? Yelled Kurumu as her nails turned into claws and large wings sprouted from her back, as 2 yellow horns came out of her head and a long thin tail with a spade on the back. Oh Kami-sama, yelled Miki in shock. Rias ignored the split-second headache that occurred and summoned her power of destruction from both her hands. Before either girl could attack, 3 shadows appeared and held a tanto to their throats. Rias became nervous at the entrance of the shadows. Shadows were Kyoto's equivalent to the stealth force from the Bleach manga that Rias loved. The triple shadows solidified, revealing themselves a trio of young women standing at 5 even with slender figures. B-cup breasts with fair skin, coral eyes and blonde hair that is tied to a ponytail, each of them having blue, green, and red, wearing a black half breastplate over a sleeveless mesh bodysuit, a black and blue striped headband with the one in front of Rias having light orange scarf with flower pattern, black arm gloves with metal bracers, a light orange hakama pants and black boots with metal plate around the shin and instep. All 3 were drop-dead gorgeous, not more so than Rias or Kurumu, but they were easily up there with some average devil beauties. Who are you 3? Asked Rias in fear. Kurumu cursed Shadow Kunoichi, part of my father's elites who travail throughout Japan, always on the lookout for threats to the greater Shinto, Yukai faction, and apparently a hidden guard I didn't realize I had, said Kurumu. Forgive us Ojo-sama, but that is not the case. We were in the area and felt a spike of power coming from you, said the blue-tied woman. Kurumu, Ojo-sama, you know that getting into a fight is forbidden by the laws of the GSY. Desecration serves our people well, said the shadow with the green hair tie. I realize that, shadow, growled Kurumu, but this bitch broke the agreement that my father warned her about. I am acting in his stance. Our names are not Shadow, we are Tia, Tina, and Tria. You have no authority to do that, Kurumu Ojo-sama. Uzumaki Dono is an top-level official of the greater Shinto, Yukai faction. You are just his child, said the triplet with a red tie. Kurumu snorted, before she allowed her transformation to resend. Miki opened her mouth, before the green-tied triplet put her palm before Mika's face. Sleep and forget this moment, said the young woman. Mika's eyes glossed over, before she fell forward and was caught by the young woman with a green tie. She put her over her shoulder and whisked her away to her bedroom. Kurumu Ojo-sama, this cannot be ignored. You will accompany us to see Uzumaki Dono, said the blue-tied young woman. Very well,
said Kurumu as she was grabbed by Red Tai and taken away in a shadow.
I would advise against doing anything else, as when Uzumaki Dono calls you to the carpet he will expect an answer, said Blue Tai, before she too vanished. It was at that moment that Rias felt death run a playful forefinger up her spine. Location: Kuo, Little Aoyama Place, Uzumaki Manor. Time: 0900, Saturday. Naruto groaned in pleasure as he lay on the table in his back room. He was naked except for a towel wrapped around his waist. Sitting on his waist rubbing his muscles was Matabi, wearing a towel herself. They had just got out of the hot spring that was attached to Naruto's house, a home that sat up in the hills of Kuo. It had cost a few million for the large Japanese-style manor that had 2 basements, a large garage, and the hot springs that Naruto was currently. I needed this, said Naruto. A day off was just what the doctor ordered. Matabi chuckled as she rubbed her lover's shoulders. Considering that you've been under a lot of stress lately, I can only image my love, said the Neko demoness. I actually got messages from both Agaya and Akasha, said Naruto. Oh, I didn't know that they had called you, said Matabi.
Agaya and her sister are thinking of moving their den here while Akasha has found a free moment to interfere in this cold war between myself and her regent Issa Shuzan, growled Naruto.
Matabi sighed. I still can't understand why you haven't killed the man. He's caused you so much grief, especially with little Mocha, said Matabi. It's only because of how fragile our alliance with the vampires is that I don't kill him. The Shuzan clan commands a considerable amount of power within the covens. If I kill him, then I invite war upon Kyoto. Even as high-ranking as I am within the GS, why I can't drag our people into a war, said Naruto. Who would have thought that Shuzan could be so petty because he didn't get to bed Akasha before she announced herself as your wife and bargaining chip between our faction and the Dark Lord faction? Hush. Let us not talk about work, let us enjoy the day, whispered Matabi, pressing her breasts to Naruto's back. Naruto felt arousal at this. Normally Naruto didn't go a day without having his balls drained of his seed, considering that he had access to multiple women. Naruto had sex with multiple women who took his fancy, but he only ever had a few wives within the last several thousand years. The last wife he had before Akasha and Ega was a young maiden from a village in Italy. The woman, it had been a few days since he had last had sex and he was feeling a bit horny at the moment. Naruto turned around and smiled at Matabi as he captured her lips in a heated kiss before his hands moved to her breasts. Matabi moaned into her lover's mouth as her hand moved to undo the clip keeping her towel in place. Before they could get too far into their intimacy ahead of themselves, Kurumu appeared with some shadow kunoichi. Naruto sighed in slight annoyance as he stopped his make-out with Matabi and turned to look at the trio and his child. What is going on? Asked Naruto. Papa, started Kurumu, only for Naruto to raise his hand. Kurumu, as much as I want to hear your side of the story, this falls into official GSY business if 3 of my shadow kunoichi brought you here, so I ask again, what is going on, Tria? Said Naruto looking at the green tie-haired young woman.
Uzumaki Dono, what I tell you because I am duty-bound, said Tria.
The eldest of the shadow kunoichi regaled Naruto with what had happened nearly 30 minutes ago, with Kurumu interjecting on why she did what she did.
Naruto growled in the back of his throat. Take a scroll to Lucifer, Leviathan, the Grimory and Citri clans and the heiresses explaining my displeasure. I will meet with them on Monday evening and go over just how fucked they are. Yelled Naruto before he vanished in a spire of blue energy.
Matabi, Tia, Tina, Tria and Kurumu looked at the place where Naruto stood and knew that someone was in serious trouble. Location: unknown place. Top of a tower. Time: unknown. On this plain there was nothing except crystal clear blue waters as far as they could see. The sun rose high in the sky, bathing the only island in its warm and powerful rays of light and life.
The island itself was nothing special, several miles long and wide.
Protected by a barrier that would stop the occasional superstorm from doing damage. Birds could be heard chirping, a few wild dogs could be seen running in packs, and other such animals could be found. Animals thought extant in the human world lived and thrived here. The only man-made structure on the island was a single building that looked ancient, yet futuristic at the same time. It was hard to describe to an outside as you could only truly see it with your own eyes. This was Sanctuary. Few had ever set foot on Sanctuary. The reason for this was that it was a hidden dimension, a place where humans, devils, and angels had never been. This was because Naruto had never allowed it, for Naruto felt this place was too pure for them. No matter how pure and good angels were, they stood still, held darkness in their hearts. At the top of Sanctuary facing the rising sun was Naruto, currently shirtless, in orange shorts with black whirlpool-like tattoos all over his body. All around him were birds and other animals that had learned to climb up the high tower.
just so they could be near the beacon of nature that was Naruto.
Behind him a portal opened, a swirling blue vortex of energy that sent the animals scurrying.
The figure who stepped out of the portal was a young female who appeared to be in her late teens, long white hair that was pulled into 3 ponytails with large green balls securing the tails. Red markings on her forehead, cheeks, shoulders and chest. A loud glowed with the divinity that the Shinto granted her. Teal green eyes that radiated kindness, a low-cut white kimono with red trimming which hangs loosely over her upper arms, exposing her the upper parts of her breasts and open to the side where you could see her left leg exposed if she walked just right. Red obi sash. The area around her eyes was painted with red makeup and even her lips were stained black to offset the pale white of her skin. Hanging from her neck was a round pendant with 9 jade beads, and High Priestess high-heeled sandals with red socks. In her sash was a paintbrush, her weapon of choice. This woman was Amaterasu, leader of the Shinto gods and supreme leader of the greater Shinto Yukai faction, with Naruto as her counterpart. "Ama, what brings you to Sanctuary?" asked Naruto, opening his eyes. "Your aura has been gone for almost a day from the correct world. I was getting worried," said Ama as she reached out as a bird landed on her hand. "You know as well as anyone who had been here a day in that world is nearly a week here," said Naruto. "I didn't come for a time-space lesson. You know why I am here. The devil faction is up in arms, about the letter you sent to them," said Ama. "Rias Grimoire broke the treaty. Barely a day after I warned her that there would be consequences for her actions, not to mention my own child commented her own infraction to complicate matters," said Naruto. Ama sighed as she sat at the edge of the tower and leaned her head on Naruto's shoulder. To anyone who show this would think it a romantic motion on Ama's part. There was nothing romantic about it, it was just Ama's motherly nature to comfort others. Then again, Naruto and Ama had no real attraction to each other aside from their mutual friendship. "I understand you're upset, but we have to play nice with the devils. They are one of the strongest factions," said Ama. Naruto snorted. "Nice my ass. Ama, I warned her not to go after Issei. I had to come here to calm myself and bleed away my excess anger. Otherwise I would have raided the underworld and beat Sorches into the afterlife," said Naruto. Ama frowned. "We faked your death for a reason, Naruto-kun. Michael, Azazel, and Sorches are not people we should antagonize. Even if you could defeat all of them in 3-on-1 combat, we cannot have it known that the strongest creature to ever existence is still alive," said Ama. Naruto snorted. "Don't remind me. We weakened our position significantly after I was hurt by Jehovah before the ceasefire. Who knew that God was so powerful for such an old wizard," said Naruto, flexing his right hand. "It took him a year to grow it back after that fight. Considering the fact that he defeated the original Satans in 4-on-1 combat and has been out of commission for almost 2 millennia is still befalling to many in the divine planes," said Ama. Naruto nodded. "So do you want to talk politics with the devils, or are you leaving that up to me?" asked Naruto, stirring the conversation away from that particular topic. "I am going to leave it up to you. Normally I would contact the devils and speak to them about what happened," said Ama. "I am sensing a but here," said Naruto, looking at Ama. Ama nodded. "There is a but. Because you are romantically involved with the queen of the offender, I am going to let you handle the punishment, but you can't kick them out of the territory," said Ama. Naruto frowned. "Even if Akeno is my lover, she has nothing to do with the business that I have with Rias or Sona," said Naruto. Ama narrowed her eyes before she rose from her seat and looked at Naruto. "Naruto, you are the lord of the Kyoto Yukai faction and appointed by myself as the vice leader of the greater Shinto Yukai alliance with myself at its head. I fought to have you in that position despite my brother Suzuanu's argument and personal hate of you," started Ama. "Bitch mad that I kicked his ass across Japan," muttered Naruto, only to be smacked on the head by Ama's brush. "I still made you my second to move past the Yukai Shinto ancient grudges despite the looming of the abysmal ones in the background and their connection to Yukai. I allow you to do as you please because we both know that you are stronger than I am. However, I still have enough sway within our faction to have your position overturned if I must, and you know what that means," said Ama. Naruto did indeed know what that meant. Ama was threatening to let the entire supernatural world in on a secret that had been guarded for close to 1,000 years. With only the Vampire Coven lords knowing about it, as they were allies of the GSY faction. Now Naruto could in theory succeed from the GSY with Kurama and Yusaka and turn the Kyoto Yukai into their own true faction, but that had many major drawbacks that Naruto wasn't willing to press. The only true advantage and trump card that Naruto had in this situation is that Yusaka was the guardian of the ley line. The Shinto gods were not about to risk that power for anything. However, Naruto also didn't want to risk the protection that his family was offered from the GSY either. Probation, said Naruto after a minute or two. I will personally oversee it with Kurumu acting as my agent while they are in school. They also forfeit 30% of all money they earn from contracts for the next 7 months. Amma smiled. Before she kissed Naruto on the forehead, now I think it's time you returned home. You've been gone for at least a day. Naruto nodded. Before he opened a portal he stepped. Location. Downtown Kuo. Place. Uzumaki Kondo. Time. 1700, Sunday. Akeno sat on the couch tapping her foot impatiently. For as long as she had known Naruto he had never given any indication that he was more than an ordinary human. He had never showed that he was older than 24. And he had never given her any reason to believe that their relationship was just him passing the time. It hurt a lot, to think that the man that she held a deep affection for could do this to her. A portal opened and out stepped Naruto, but before he could say anything a blast of lightning hit him and sent him into the wall. Naruto barely felt IY, but pretended he did. He had been married a number of times and knew that sometimes it was best to let his wife girlfriend of the time era win or else it could have consequences.
I deserved that, said Naruto shaking his head. Akeno walked up to Naruto while shedding her clothes.
You deserve more than that, but tonight we're going to fuck. Not make love, not cuddle up on the couch and talk it out. We are going to fuck each other with all of our supernatural power and in the morning we're going to talk, said Akeno licking her lips and allowing lightning to surge through her fingers. Akeno joined Naruto on the floor as her lips crashed into his.
The conference room of the Orc Clubhouse was currently in use as the 7 individuals awaited the man who had asked for this meeting in the first place. This was not how Sona planned on spending her evening. Maybe with a good book, doing paperwork or one of her rare guilty pleasures, practicing kissing with her queen. Maybe even practicing cunnilingus on each other. If you asked Sona if she enjoyed doing rather sexual things with her queen, the answer would be a hard no, but that wasn't why they were here.
When it came to the overall shared reign of Ku Town, Sona was the brains and Rias was the muscle. Sona knew that while she was as strong as Rias and had more pieces, Rias' peerage was just of a better quality, so for her to get a message from Rias that the daughter of a high-ranking member of Kyoto's faction attacked her was a bit disconcerting. Especially when said member was actually the president and CEO of Senju Industries. While Senju Industries made their name in the human world as leaders in the medical field while dabbling in other forms of business, in the supernatural world they were a front for the Kyoto faction and to a lesser extent the GSY. Since this was dealing with things beyond their political power, it was decided that Sirzex and Serafal, both of whom dropped everything they were doing to come to the defense of their little sisters, despite how powerful Serafal and Sirzex both were utter cis-cons. Sometimes Sona thought that they both wanted to have sex with them, which wasn't uncommon for siblings and even parents in devil families to take an immediate family members as a lover. Her own father just so happened to be her mother's cousin from the branch family of the Citri.
Focus Sona, yelled her inner chibi. Sona Citri was a beautifully stern bespectacled young woman standing at 55 with a slim figure with B-cup breasts.
Black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes, she was dressed in the Kuo Academy's girls' uniform revealing her best feature, her long legs. Would normally consider herself to be the brains half of the powers that controlled Kuo. She knew from her sister that the territory was only on loan as an experiment and a sign of good faith for the alliance with the greater Shinto Yukai faction. Standing behind her was Queen Shinra Tsubaki, a young bespectacled woman who stood at the same height as Sona. Sometimes people would often mistake them as sisters. It was actually a little flattering that people thought them siblings sometimes, but unlike her king, she had D-cup breasts with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs, and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. She wore the same uniform as Sona did. Normally Sona was the diplomat when it came to Rias' rather blunt approach to things. It was one of the reasons that Serafal was here. Sitting on her left was Sona's sister, the Satan in charge of foreign affairs. The strongest female devil, Serafal Leviathan, a title she earned through blood, tears, heartbreak, and criticism from the Devil Council. She wasn't very tall. She was even shorter than Sona herself, standing at 52, and despite her age of a few hundred if not closer to 1,000 she still looked to be in her late teens early 20s with knee-length black hair, tied into twin tails and blue eyes. She wore a green blazer-like shirt with a white neckerchief, knee-length black shirt, black-heeled boots. Normally her queen would be there to assist, but she was currently working in talks with the werewolf packs of the Dark Lord factions. Because of the fact that the Citri and Grimoire clans were allies because of her sister and Lord Lucifer, they decided to share the territory in the human world. a territory that was on loan to them from the greater Shinto, Yukai faction, a faction that was strong enough to give the Egyptian Parathion pause. She knew that part of that was due to the leader of the Kyoto faction, Yasaka the Guardian of the Leyline, one of the most powerful sources of magic across the realms. This thought led to Sona looking to her right of where Rias sat with Akeno standing behind her. And then to Rias' right was her brother, leader of all devils, and the strongest devil to live since Lucifer the Morning Star, Searsex Lucifer ne Grimori. Searsex is a handsome man who seems to be in his early 20s. He has shoulder-length crimson hair and blue eyes. If you asked anyone who looked at him and Rias side by side, you would swear they could pass for twins with how similar in appearance they were. And finally there was Searzek's queen, wife, as well as Seraphil's former rival for the position of Leviathan. Graphia Lucifuge. Graphia stood at 58, a beautiful young woman appearing to be in her early 20s with back-length silver hair that features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, which ends in twin braids and silver eyes, wearing a blue and white French-made outfit with long sleeves and a white-made headband over her head with red lipstick. The atmosphere was tense as the seven sat in the room together. Normally both Searsex and Seraphil would be gushing over their sisters with their respective queens trying and most likely failing to get them back in line. However, with how serious the accusations were at the moment, it was no wonder both Satans had their game faces on. A knock sounded on the door. Bushu and Uzumaki Naruto, alongside Anibi Matabi and Korono Uzumaki Kurumu were here, came the voice of Rias Rook. Enter, said Rias. The door opened and in walked the man who had scowled Rias a number of days ago. The woman who Sona assumed was Matabi had a briefcase in her hand. They walked to the chairs where Naruto moved the chair allow Kurumu to sit down. Before he pushed the chair up slightly, once seated Matabi took up a standing position behind Naruto. Uzumaki-sama, I welcome you here, despite these unusual circumstances, said Rias. Thank you for hosting me, Grimori-san. As much as I enjoy political machinations, I would like to get this over and done with. Matabi opened the briefcase and removed a black paper that had golden writing on it alongside signatures at the bottom, specifically Searsex, Seraphil, Yasaka, and Naruto. As you all know, this is the agreement to allow Grimori-sama and Sona-sama to rule over Kuo, with the Kyoto faction acting as an observer to the GSY to allow you here. Part of that agreement is that anyone who is unaware of the supernatural isn't allowed to be in your peerage. That may be the case, but from what I understand, Issei-san was saved by Uzumaki-sama and told of the supernatural by his daughter, meaning that he fell into this criteria, said Sona. It would be if not for the fact that Issei's father Goro works directly for me as a member of Senju Industries' HR department. Since Senju Industries is an extension of the Kyoto faction, all personnel who are employed by Senju Industries are protected by under said treaty, said Naruto. The dead do not have the same rights as those who are alive, said Seraphil. Issei wasn't dead when Rias turned him into a servant, said Naruto. What do you mean he wasn't dead? His eyes were closed and blood was all over the place, said Rias, allowing her passion and arrogance to shine though. My apologize, Grimori. Allow me to explain. In Kyoto, just like the devil faction, we have separate classifications for our personnel. Actually, we would be closer to an RPG system of classes. I would be considered assassin and my subclass is censor, said Naruto. Censor? Asked Searsex with narrowed eyes. I didn't know the demon shinobi was a censor. Naruto smirked at Graphia, who blushed. I knew about it, Lucifer-sama, said Graphia. Seraphil turned and glared at her former rival. And you never said anything about one of our strongest enemies at the time? Asked Seraphil. To be fair, she couldn't say anything. Even if she could, I took a page out of an old enemy of my grandfather's to ensure the silence of all those in the old Satan faction. Of course there are other secrets that Graphia kept for me, said Naruto. Searsex narrowed his eyes. If you're implying that you used my wife as a SL, started Searsex. Naruto barked out a laugh. Nothing of the sort. Yes, I did used to have sex with Kateria Leviathan in between battles and missions. I did make a pass at Graphia, but she turned me down. Searsex-sama, we are not here to revisit the past. We are here to talk about what happened between Rias-sama and Kurumu-sama, said Akeno. You are correct, Akeno-chan. I'd rather not have to kill a partner of ours, said Searsex, glaring at Naruto. 932 attempts, with half of those being in tandem with either Seraphil or Ajuka, and a further quarter of those being all three of you taking me on, said Naruto. Gentlemen, please, that's enough, said Seraphil, despite she herself remembering the broken bones that Naruto had left her with during the war. You're right, let us move on to the next topic. Kurumu, by report of your own shadows attacked Rias, said Searsex. I was acting in place of my father. Yelled Kurumu, rising to her feet, only for Naruto to grip her shoulder and ease her back into her seat. So she is an agent of yours? Asked Serafal. Kurumu does not speak for me. While she is my child, she is not an official of Kyoto or the GSY. She was doing what she thought was right, said Naruto. I believe that it would be good for her to spend some time under me as one of my servants, said Rias. That's not happening. There were mistakes all around here, but you still disobeyed an official of the GSY in Kyoto. I think I have a solution that all involved would agree with, said Naruto. What is it, Uzumaki-sama? Asked Graphia. For starters, since Grimori-san and Citri-san share this territory, they are both on probation. Also, Rias is not allowed to speak to Issei for a week. I wish I could impose harsher punishment, but seeing that both girls are learning how to be rulers, I've decided to help them with the political aspect of their letting, said Naruto. That's not far. Issei is my servant now and falls under the laws of Devil Society, said Rias. A society he doesn't know the rules of yet. Despite how you devils are more civilized than you once were, several among you still comment atrocities just because you can. Riser Phoenix for one, he's lived for over 100 years, participated in the attack of a Nako village and enough, yelled Searzex, to blatantly accuse my people of doing something like that in front of me, I'll annihilate you. 1. Naruto smirked. So some semblance of the Crimson King of Destruction remains. It would be a pleasure to beat you within an inch of your life. Both men stared at each other before a burst of static was heard where Naruto was. Searzex vanished in a blur of motion. Serafal, Matabi, and Graphia all sighed. Before they rose to their feet and left the room, everyone else was confused. Before they heard it, sonic booms. Following the elder women, they rushed outside. Once outside, Sona's eyes widened. Naruto and Searzex were in the air, with Naruto holding a black rod in his hand while Searzex held a sword made of the power of destruction. The power of the Beal clan. Naruto charged at Searzex and stacked with a slash. Searzex blocked the attack, and much to the shock of all of the younger girls, the two weapons shattered. Naruto didn't let up and did a flip into an axe kick that forced Searzex to block with his arms. Searzex uncrossed his arms and grabbed Naruto's leg before throwing him at the ground as he summoned an orb of destruction. That's my brother's signature move, yelled Rias, having seen the attack. She had based her own super attack off of this move. Kurumu snorted, making the others look at her. Please, Papa isn't going to let some knockoff take him out. Knockoff? You bastard, you're still using that imitation Rasengan? Asked Naruto as he held up his right hand and summoned a blue Rasengan. The duo vanished. The girls looked around for them, before Matabi, Serafal, and Graphia put up a barrier over them as an explosion appeared above him. Black and blue lightning appeared all around, before a figure fell from the sky and created a crater in the ground. The woman lowered the barrier to see Searzex laying in the crater, his cape in tatters as was his suit. Naruto came from the sky and landed on the ground in front of Searzex. I win, said Naruto. What the hell was that? Asked Rias in a rather unladylike manner, that got her a head smack from her sister-in-law. That, my dear, is the politics of fists, said Naruto as he ripped off his damaged shirt, making Akeno lick her lips, Tsubaki and Sona blush, and Matabi think of all the things that she was going to do to those abs. Men, said the three older women. Fine, you win, although I think that taking Issei from Rias for a week is too much, said Searzex, getting up and rubbing his head. Consider it a timeout. I don't plan on teaching Issei a thing since Rias is his master, speaking of which he better be trained correctly, said Naruto, looking at Rias. After a few moments of hashing out lesser details, Searzex, Serafal, and Graphia leave, Rias glared at Naruto for a second. Before she and Akeno left, once everyone left except the student council members and Naruto. Sona rose from her seat. Tsubaki looked at her master with a raised eyebrow at this. Out of everyone who knew Sona, then it would be Tsubaki. Tsubaki, like all queens, were to their kings Sona's right-hand woman and advisor. More than that, she was privy to intimate knowledge and details that Sona would rather keep quiet about. For instance, while she was embarrassed to buy her sister, she owned several cosplay outfits that came from her sister's television show, Magical Girl Levi Tan. Tsubaki had seen her best friend at her most vulnerable. She knew better than anyone how hard Sona worked to prove herself to not only her family, but the other pillar families, that she could run the house of Citri without a husband. Sona had been pledged to the third son of the Shax clan who would take the Citri name upon marriage. At 12 years old, Sona challenged him to a battle of wits in a game of chess. Sona defeated him with ease and even told all devils that only someone who could defeat her in chess would be worthy of her hand in marriage. Several had come to try their luck at her hand. All had lost. Tsubaki didn't remember the first time she and Sona had played together, but it became quite a normal thing between them after each defeat of a suitor. Of course, as her queen, she was obligated to advise and take care of Sona. Excuse me, Uzumaki-sama, said Sona. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. You may call me Naruto Citri-san. Despite what just happened, I am not so high up on formalities that I am going to force you to call me Sama or by my last name, said Naruto. Sona chuckled. If you insist on being called Naruto, then please call me Sona. As you said, formalities are a bit of a chore, said Sona. Indeed. What did you want to talk about, Sona-chan? Asked Naruto. Sona nodded. Before she bowed slightly, I would like to apologize to you, Naruto-san. As co-leader of this territory, it is part of my duty to police Rias in all matters that would break the treaty. The same goes to her, said Sona. It's fine, Sona-chan, said Naruto. Still, I insist that you join me for coffee and to talk about the future of Kuo and what you expect from me, said Sona, giving Naruto a small smile. Naruto looked at Sona. Before he smiled at her. I have no problems with that, Sona-san. How about we have coffee, Saturday, said Naruto. Sona lifted her hand out to Naruto. That sounds lovely, Naruto-san. Naruto took Sona's hand and kissed the back of it. The Citri heiress had to fight the reddening of her cheeks. I'll see you Saturday. Say, 10 o'clock in the park, Sona-san, said Naruto. Sona smiled. I look forward to spending a day together, Naruto-san, said Sona. Naruto vanished with his signature static sound, with Matabi creating a portal that she and Kurumu. Location: Kuo Entertainment District. Place: Street. Time: 1800, Friday. Kurumu and Issei walked down the street away from a karaoke bar that they had been at with a Motohama, Matsuda, Akia, and a girl that Matsuda had managed to save from a group of thugs. Matsuda and Motohama had thought it a typical high school mixed was in reality a way for Kurumu to keep an eye on Issei. Rias was told by Naruto that she couldn't see Issei for a week, mostly to give him a chance to really adjust to the new life that he was going to lead. Kurumu watched as Issei smiled and laughed, talking about how the girls had been so chill, and Kurumu had even convinced the other girls to do a little lap dance and make out session with the other two guys. With a little help from her charm, she had even made out with Issei so that he wouldn't feel left out. Besides, Issei was far from a bad kisser in Kurumu's eyes, and she had met plenty, not to mention that he was cute. Kurumu shook her head to focus herself. Currently she was on duty. It was her punishment for attacking Rias. It was actually a pretty common. Kurumu was currently steaming on the inside as she kept glancing at Issei. Over the last week since the meeting between her father and the Satans, things had been tense. Or at least things with Rias' group have been tense. Kaneko was no longer talking to her, or at least giving her the cold shoulder. And while she hadn't really spoken to Akeno yet, she was giving her glares. That was more due to not actually getting to meet Akeno one-on-one. As the duo walked, Kurumu felt a spike of killing intent. She looked around for the direction of the killing intent and saw it. It was a middle-aged looking man with short black hair and dark blue eyes, pale gray trench coat over a white dress shirt with a matching ascot, black pants and shoes, a pair of black gloves, and a black fedora. Here I was out for a midnight stroll and I find a succubus and a devil out on a date, said the man, putting a hand on his hat. Who are you? Asked Kurumu. Me. My name is Danesik, said the man, revealing his black wings. You are trespassing on GSY territory, fallen, spat Kurumu. Danesik looked at Kurumu with a smirk. From my research, this is the territory of the Citri heiress and the Grimori heiress. Of course, a slut such as yourself is a nice bonus, said Danesik. Kurumu stiffened hearing this. If he knew which devils were in charge, then he was here for one reason. Issei, run! Yelled Kurumu as she charged at Danesik and allowed her claws out, only for Danesik to jump upwards slightly and kick Kurumu in her face, sending her flying backwards. Kurumu hit a roadside tree and lay there unconscious. Kurumu-chan! Yelled Issei, before he glared at Danesik. He charged at the large man with his fist pulled back and began to throw wild punches. Danesik backed away, making Issei miss each punch. Danesik grabbed Issei by his arm and yanked it upwards, before throwing Issei into a car. Issei bounced off the car and coughed up blood. Issei got up and looked at a pipe that was on the ground next to him. Picking it up, he charged at Danesik and swung it at him. Danesik moved backward and smirked, before he held out his hand and summoned a spear of light that was blue and thrust it at Issei. Issei managed to back away just in time, but was still blasted backwards as his shirt and the surface area of his chest was hit with a second-degree burn. Issei rolled on the ground clutching his chest in pain. He looked at Danesik with a glare. Bastard! Growled Issei. Danesik laughed. Don't blame me, kid. You picked up a pipe, so I summoned my spear. I would have been happy to beat you to death with my fists. Once I am done with you, I plan on taking my time with that succubus. Been a few years since I fucked one stupid, said the twisted fallen angel. Issei looked at Danesik with a glare that made the hardened veteran flinch. Issei clutched his left fist and rose to his feet. His fit glowed red before a light burst from his arm. Danesik was forced to cover his eyes before the light died down. Once the light was gone, it revealed a red, armored bracer with yellow accents and a green jewel on top of the palm area, the fingers errant covered on Issei's arm. All this time we were afraid of a twice critical, snorted Danesik. You do not take what is mine, yelled Issei as he pulled his fist back and threw it forward. The blow hit Danesik and launched him several meters away from Issei, as well as releasing some red energy. Once he hit the ground, he lay still for a moment as Issei panted. Danesik rose to his feet and turned to Issei. He didn't have any anger or hate in his eyes, but he was smiling. Danesik wiped his mouth of the blood that was there. Damn kid, that was a good hit. If you had a little more strength or technique, then you could have broken my jaw. It's clear to me you've never been in a fight. Funny how I managed to get a combat virgin with such a weak gear. Issei got into a basic boxing stance that almost everyone knew as he prepared to fight for not only his life, but Kurumu's. Danesik summoned another spear. That's enough, yelled a familiar voice. Issei looked to where the voice had come from to see Ria standing there, holding out her hand with a ball of destruction in her hand. Blood-red hair and black aura, heiress of Grimoire. You have me at a disadvantage as I do not know who you are, said Rias. My name is of no consequence to you, woman, said Danesik. Except you attack the ruler of this territory, someone who I have to teach more about politics, said another voice. Issei looked up to see Naruto, who held Kurumu in his arms bridal style. Great, another devil, said Danesik. Naruto snorted. I am no devil, I am a yokai. Naruto vanished without a sound and reappeared, kicking Danesik on his right side. The force of Naruto blow crushed Danesik's right arm and some of his ribs as he went flying into the air. Danesik gripped his shattered ribs as he glared at Naruto, too. I underestimated you. Who are you? Asked Danesik. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I am the Lord of Kyoto and a member of the Greater Shinto Yukai Council. I am not someone you want to cross. I see. Well then, Lord Uzumaki, I guess it's time for me to leave, said Danesik. Naruto glared at him. As if I'd left you leave after attacking my child. Yelled Naruto. Let him go, Uzumaki-san, said Rias. Naruto turned to Rias with a raised eyebrow. As much as he wanted to rebuttal, he had agreed that he would allow Rias and Sona to make mistakes and be there as a sort of safety net. The only reason he had agreed to this was because he once considered Grafia a dear comrade. Very well. However, if he gives us any problems in the future, it's you who will clean up the mess, said Naruto. Rias nodded as Danesik took off into the night. She knew that it might seem counterproductive to allow an enemy to leave, but she needed him to deliver a message to their leader. A fight was coming and Rias was going to bring that fight. Thanks for watching.